My name is Freeman Michaels, and my goal is the complete and total freedom of every human being on the planet. This is Banking 101, how to enslave a population, and my goal with this is just to demonstrate in a simplified form how banking works and how it's bad for society. There's a lot of banking videos that explain stuff, and they go into interest rates and fractional reserve, and that's all legit. But I don't think that's actually the biggest problem that we face with banking. So, Banking 101. Let's say you have a town of a few people. Apologize for my writing. It's going to be awful and going to get worse. So all these people have some needs: food, shelter, heat, furniture, and the basics. And let's say that the town has a supply of gold, and it's gold and silver, precious metals, whatever, and it's distributed not so much equally throughout everybody, but like they all have enough where they all get food, and they all have the shelter, and they all have heat, because they're all living with each other. And it would just be weird if there's a homeless guy next to you and he was trying to work, and you're like, well, sorry, I don't feel like paying you gold and silver for anything. Like, if you have enough, then generally people around you are going to have the basics. So let's just say that this is a normal society represented by just a few people here, but there's all the things that you need to produce, and there's a market, and everyone's going to the market for gold and silver, or using gold and silver to exchange in this market. This works reasonably well, except that if people really want to start hoarding gold and silver, then they'll do things like shaving the coins and whatnot. So the passing the gold and silver back and forth is kind of a pain in the ass. So someone came up with the idea, like, hey, you know what? You can trust me. And that's huge. This is the bank. You can trust me. So I'm going to issue banknotes. And the banknote is going to be, an ounce of gold, ounce of silver, or whatever denomination. And carrying these certified banknotes that this guy that you trust with this institution is a lot easier. Then you have to worry about shaming gold and whatnot. So if you took all of the gold and silver out of the equation and you put it in the bank, that's fine, as long as you trust them. Your society can function exactly how it did before, because the same number of people have work or extra work, because the only thing that's different is that you're exchanging banknotes instead of these pieces of metal. And that works because you trust the bank. So let's say there's a situation where amongst this group, there is a scarcity of sushi. Everyone likes sushi, but there isn't enough to go around. So what do? Well, it's the highest bidder. Person's trying to make a living. So maybe one person can't have sushi every time it's available, because eventually he's going to get outbid by somebody else because he's spending all of his banknotes or gold or silver. So the price fluctuates based on whoever's willing to bid the most. That's all good. With that system, anyone who wants sushi eventually is going to get it, as long as they're willing to save. So what happens if this trusted bank says, you know what? It's been a few years. Everyone knows my banknote is as good as gold. So behind the scenes, the banker can just create a new banknote, because that's all they did here, certify it, and buy some sushi. Now, you can, if the system's, if there's 7 people, obviously you're going to notice that all of a sudden, instead of 6 ounces or 7 ounces of gold, there's 8 or whatever. You'll notice a difference. But in a larger system, you won't. Or even if you do, what are you going to do about it, right? But what's important is not so much interest rates. Yes, that's big. The fractional reserve, that's big. It's that behind the scenes, if you trust this bank and the bank isn't trustworthy, they can create banknotes. And when there's something of scarcity, oh my, I can't draw. I can't draw. Huge fin. I don't even know what the hell is it. Anyway, so that's a whale slash fish slash sushi. You would have access to everything that's scarce, provided that you could maintain the trust. So anytime there was something that's scarce would come up, you could say, I got myself a banknote. And as long as people aren't auditing, audit the Fed, then they won't recognize that there's an additional banknote in circulation. So if there was supposed to be, 6? So if there was supposed to be 6 ounces of gold, 6 ounces of silver in circulation, and all of a sudden now there's 9 and 6, if you weren't paying attention, you may not notice. And then this trusted banking institution has all the sushi. Why the fuck am I even drawing that? All because you trusted them to have their banknotes equal gold and silver. So what is the Federal Reserve doing? And why does this really matter? So in this small situation, you could see how that trust would give you access to anything that's scarce. The same thing applies, though, to land. Like, think about when the Fed printed whatever, I don't even remember what it was. Was it 650, 750 billion, whatever? And who did they give it to? Did they give it to these people? No, they gave it to their other trusted friends in Wall Street because they were out of money. So just like printing a banknote here gives you access to the scarcity of the sushi in the community, printing the banknotes like the Fed did transfers all the purchasing power into their friends' hands. So here, just because they printed a banknote, they now get the purchasing power and they can decide what they're going to buy in this society that has scarcity. So now, because these clowns were really greedy and trying to get even more money, they had to be bailed out. But this gives them all this ability to buy whatever's scarce. So when you think about how you spend 30 years of your life paying interest to these trusted institutions that could give you the money and choose to give it to their friends otherwise. And then now we have lots of vacant homes owned by these trusted institutions. Yet they give money to their friends who now have even more purchasing power. Like these initial people here now have been robbed of their wealth because they don't even have the purchasing power for land, because these trusted banknotes flood the market, and then you can buy whatever is scarce. Land, politicians, whatever, CEOs. Apologize again. Oh my God, that's awful. So interest rates are huge. That's important. But the very fact that you trust the banking institution to keep their banknotes as scarce as whatever the society demands Gold and silver may not work here long term because if this community grows and you would need more currency in circulation. So sometimes that's okay to create banknotes. But if this trusted institution is creating banknotes for their friends so that they can influence the world, like if you're influencing CEOs and the CEO says, hey, I've got this great product that's going to free all of humanity, you think these fuckers are going to loan you the money? No. It's like if you had a product that all of a sudden didn't need banknotes to get whatever this stuff is, this guy loses power. So through IPOs and loaning them money and whatnot, banks can heavily influence businesses. Government's just a business, by the way. It's not. People like to think it's special. It's not. It's literally just a business, and it has a different goal than to maximize profit in the stock market. So when you can decide through basically bribery and kind of eventually just going along because everyone's like, oh, I'm going to be successful in business and that's the whole point of my life. Well, they're getting you to chase banknotes because they have a lot of influence. When things happen in society, they're like, well, the whole world revolves around our banknotes, so we'll use our banknotes to dictate what happens. And the fractional reserve and interest rates, those are all just tricks and gimmicks, and that may make things worse. But the whole problem is that there's this trust that they're managing the number of banknotes such that what was previously happening in terms of who has wealth, resources, and access to what continues to happen. But they use banknotes to maximize their claim on everything. Why did the banks own land in the first place? And we have to buy the land from them. Like, they're in debt. It's pretty silly. So when people like Ron Paul talk about auditing the Fed, I think it's going to break a lot of people's brains. It's like I had 6 ounces of gold and 6 ounces of silver. I'm like, here's a pretty picture of 9 ounces of gold and still 6 of silver. It's really, whatever trillions. Trillions of banknotes and 0 gold, 0 silver. That's what I was getting at there. So they now control resources and what people work on and what businesses happen and what ideas get out merely because they've got everybody chasing their product. Banking 101.